Hey guys, welcome to this first video in our series. Today we're going to start with the introduction to 3D, and we're of course going to jump straight into Maya. So welcome, this is Maya 2023. It's one of the newest versions that we have right now. At the time of this recording, we are in just like the basis Maya 2023. There hasn't been any update, and throughout this series, of course, I'm going to be teaching you all of the different techniques, tools, and tips and tricks that you might need to create your own scenes here inside of Maya. Now, we first need to start with the general overview of the interface. This first couple of videos might be a little bit basic if you've already tried Maya before, or if you have some basic principles about it. But if not, this is of course going to be super helpful for anyone that's just starting. As you guys know, Maya is one of the most well-known 3D softwares in the industry for games, film, commercials, and all kinds of entertainment things. So yeah, it's a rather complicated and intimidating program at first, especially if you've never used any software before, but I'm going to try to make this as nice and as simple as possible. So first of all, when we take a look at this, well, you're probably going to be greeted by this screen right here, which I personally don't like, which is just a basic recent files and stuff that you might want to access. I usually, again, I don't like this home screen to show on startup, so I click this button over here and just go to Maya. You can access that one on this little house right here, of course. By the way, before I move on, just keep in mind that all of the shortcuts, especially for keystrokes, are going to be down here. Especially when I type, you're going to see a lot of little things over here. But when I press Shift, Control, and all that sort of stuff, you're going to see them on your bottom right corner. So make sure to follow if you are getting lost with some of the shortcuts. Now, Maya is divided into different sections. First of all, I'm going to go here to Workspace. I'm going to click General, and then I'm going to go down here to where it says Recent Current Workspace. If your interface ever gets bugged or you don't find something, just reset your current workspace, and you should be going back all the way to this point, which is like the default Maya screen. Now, why do we have several layouts? Well, depending on the type of thing that you might be doing, you might want to change this thing to something like rigging or animation, and it will just hide or show different menus and interfaces that you might need for the specific thing that you might be working on. Now, as any other software, we have our menus up here. All of the tools, all of the things, all of the elements that live inside of Maya can be found on the menus. After that, we have this bar right here, which contains a lot of shortcuts. The most important ones, I would say, are this ones right here, which are the snapping shortcuts. This one right here, which are the file, open, save, undo, redo shortcuts. These ones are called the masks. We'll talk about them later. And these ones right here, which are the render shortcuts. So the hypershade, to render a scene, to interactive preview render, all of the things are right here. So those three main areas, don't forget about them. Snapping tools, we'll talk about what those are. If you don't know, don't worry. The render things and the file things. Then we have this thing right here. This is called the shelf. And the shelf is where all of your tools are going to be living, and you're going to be able to access. So if you have a tool up here on any of the menus and you don't want to be going all the way to the menu and selecting the tool, you can add that tool to the shelf. We'll be doing that very shortly when we're going to be building our own shelf. But shelves are really cool. And as you can see, we do have several shelves here depending on, again, the part of the workflow or the pipeline that we're working on. If we're doing modeling, we're probably going to be on the poly modeling shelf. If we're doing animation, we're probably going to jump to the animation one. If we're doing XGen, hair and stuff, we're probably going to jump all the way over here. So again, depending on the type of element or the type of work that you're doing, you might be changing your shelves. Over here, we have the most common tools, which are the selection tools, the lasso selection tool, and the paint selection tool. From these three, the one that you're going to be using the most is the select tool, and you might want to save this on your head already, which is the shortcut, and that is the letter Q. So if you press the letter Q, you're going to jump, as you can see, to the selection option. Then we have the move tool, the rotation tool, and the scale tool. We'll talk about this ones very shortly, but this is the place where you're going to find most of these elements. These ones right here are very important. These are the panel layouts for your viewport. This big area right here that you're seeing, this is called the viewport, and this is our window to the 3D world. So everything that we do in the 3D world is going to be seen through a viewport. And there's a couple of layouts that we can have. For instance, this is the basic perspective view. We can have this one, which has 4 views. We see the perspective, the top, the front, and the side. We have this one that allows us to have 2 views, like perspective and front view. And this little button right here opens and closes the outliner. Now, some things that I found with some students is if your screen is really small or if your resolution is not full HD, you might not see all of these buttons. However, don't worry, I'll show you where you can find them if that is the case. And that's it. If you ever find yourself lost on the screen or something happens, you can just click this one right here and you're gonna go back to the perspective view right here. Down here, this is called the time slider, which is our like timeline when we do animation and we want to see how things change throughout time. This is where we're gonna be setting keyframes and stuff. And then this thing right here is called the range slider, which is the active range of time that we are editing or working on. Finally, at the very bottom of the Maya screen, we have this one right here, which displays, as it says, displays short help tips for tools and selections. So if you were to like hover around like this one right here, the bevel component, you're not only going to see a little tooltip on your mouse, you're also going to see the little tooltip down there on the corner where it just like mentions what that thing is. We also have this place right here, which is for scripting. This is called the Maya Embedded Language scripting language, or a script language, and we can write code down here if you need to. Now, one of the cool things about the Maya interface is that it is very like customizable. I think that's the word, which means you can change these things and move them around. So whenever you see this little like dotted small dots here, you can just grab them, drag them wherever you want, and you can dock this in like different places. When you see that like long blue line, that means that you can dock that thing somewhere else. Now, for instance, I normally don't do a lot of scripting, so I can just like remove that one. Same for the tooltip. I really don't need the tooltip right now, so I'm just going to delete that. And as you can see, we're going to get more and more screen space, which might be good, especially if you're working on a small monitor. You can also, again, change this at any point. You can just reset the current workspace and everything's going to be back to normal. Or if you say, hey, you know what, I'm going to be working on modeling, well, we can just click modeling. And as you can see, the animation tools are now hidden, and we have more space for our modeling elements. Some people like to work with the workspaces. You can save your own workspace, by the way. If you create or customize something on your own, then you can just save it and use it whenever you need. There's this one which is called the modeling expert, where you don't need any like shells or anything because you're going to be doing everything with like shortcuts and stuff. I don't recommend it for beginners, so let's stick now with the modeling standard one. You can load this so that no other like change can happen. I think that's what's supposed to be doing. Oh, no, it just disables docking and undocking, so we won't be able to move things around. There you go. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for like the general view of what things are here inside of the interface. Now, movement. Whenever I start a new video game or any sort of like interactive experience, I want to know how to move, right? And this is the big question. If you're coming from other 3D softwares, this is probably going to be the most like challenging thing at first, getting used to how to move and do things inside of Maya. But it's actually, I would say, pretty simple. You're going to use the Alt key, and you're going to use the 3 clicks on your mouse, which this brings me to a little tangent here. Make sure, this is very important, make sure that you are working with a traditional mouse that has the little scroll wheel. The most basic one, like you can get this ones for like $10 or like $5 or something. You need one of this. Why? Because there's a lot of functions inside of Maya that needs the middle mouse button, which is this one right here. So if your mouse does not have this little scroll wheel and you can't click on it, you might want to go to the store and get one that works, because otherwise some of the tools and shortcuts that we're going to be using might not work for you. Normally, I don't recommend people investing in a lot of in a lot of equipment, but I personally have this mouse right here, which is the Logitech G600. I really like this one because it has extra buttons on the side with the number pad on it. So again, there's a lot of like number related shortcuts inside of Maya, and having access to this one, it's very comfortable for me. So I do recommend this one if you guys want to do a little bit of an investment or something similar. It's just handy. And yeah, so if you press Alt and then you press your right mouse button, you're gonna do a zoom like this. So Alt and right mouse is going to be a zoom, and we're going to be zooming in a very nice and controlled manner. As you can see right here, it's very soft, very cool. Then if you use your scroll wheel, you're also going to be zooming, but it's going to be more in a sort of a stepped way, right? So you can see how it kind of like snaps to a specific amount of units, so that it just like moves around. So if you just want to scroll or zoom in and out very quickly, the scroll wheel is more than enough. But sometimes you're going to have this very like nice soft zoom in or out, and you're definitely going to use Alt and right click. Alt and the middle mouse button, this is very important. If you click on the middle mouse, as I just mentioned, you're going to get this, where you pan the camera from left to right and top to bottom, okay? So that's the other movement that you're going to be needing. And finally, Alt and right click, or sorry, left click, the remaining click, is going to give you this rotation right here. So whenever you're going to move the camera, you need to press Alt, supers. Alt, left click, Alt, middle mouse click, or Alt, right click to move the camera around. Now, why is this called 3D? Well, because we have 3 axes of like editing that we can do. I'm going to be using this tool quite a bit. This is called the blue pencil, and it's like an annotation tool. And we need to understand that in the 3D world, or normally when we look at math, we have a graph that has like X and Y, right? Like something like this. Hopefully everyone in school has done something like this. Well, in the 3D world, the only thing that changes is that now we add another one called the C-axis. In Maya, the C-axis is and back. In some other softwares, for instance, in Unreal Engine, C is up and down. But in Maya, as you can see down here on the little corner of the screen, this tells us where the actual axes are. So now with that little icon, I know that this direction right here is positive X. Okay, like that. I know that this direction right here is negative X. I know that this direction right here is positive Y. This direction right here is negative Y. This is positive C. And this is negative C. Those are all of the coordinates that we have here inside of our world. And that's the cool thing about Maya, that we can rotate around and we can move around all of these different axes. If you ever get lost, don't worry. Down here, again, there's going to be this little gizmo that you can see, and that's going to tell you where things are. Now, by default, in older versions of Maya, if you went here to the display and then here on the heads-up display, in older versions of Maya, there was this thing called the view cube, which is this little cube over here. Let me actually turn off a couple of things that I have. I have turned on the poly count, which is this thing that you see right here. I'll turn it off for now. We don't really need it. And I'm also going to turn off the object details. So it's as close as what your guys are seeing on your screens. So this little view cube, I don't love it, but it's here, again, in case you need some like extra visualization things. And the cool thing about the view cube is that if you get lost again, you can just like look to this corner and see where your camera is right now. And you can actually click the camera and it's going to bring you to the front, or it's going to give you to the top. But this is not the top, like it's not the actual top camera, it's the top position from your perspective camera. That's the thing that can get a little bit confusing. So normally I don't use the cube. I'm going to keep it there just to have another like visual reference. I do believe you can adjust this thing here in the preferences, how big this thing is and stuff, where it is. You can see this is the top right. We can place it wherever we want. The size, we can say large, for instance, and if we save, the cube is going to be even bigger. I think we're going to leave it like that, just so you guys have an extra visual indicator of where we are on the screen. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the basic like introduction to the 3D interface. Again, I know that these videos are a little bit basic, especially if you've already have some experience with 3D. You can always skip ahead to some of the like upcoming exercises. But if you're especially starting with the 3D world, then I would encourage you to take notes and make sure you understand all of these concepts, because they're going to be super important as we move forward. So yeah, that's it for this one, guys. In the next one, we're going to talk about the primitives and how to modify them. So hang on tight, and I'll see you back on the next one.